doing a lot of talking about LGBT pride this month. This past Sunday, the Black Lives Matter movement in Toronto staged a sit-in at the annual Toronto Pride Parade. And this is apparently Canada's largest LGBTQ event. They were protesting an alleged neglect on the part of Pride Toronto in ensuring the safety and inclusion of people from all walks of life, particularly, as you might imagine, people of color. Now, the Black Lives Matter protesters made a list of demands, including, among other things, increasing the diversity of who they hire and staff for the event, and also increasing accessibility for the hearing impaired. I will link the full list of demands in the description. Honestly, most of them are perfectly reasonable, but perhaps the most controversial demand was the removal of police floats from pride marches and parades. And the idea is that the presence of police can make people of color feel less safe. Now, this happened in Canada, and I don't live in Canada, so I'm less informed about what goes on there. I can only go off of what I've read, but I've definitely read that Canada, like the United States, has issues with racism and racial profiling. As a black man in America, I can vouch for the idea that the presence of police can make us feel more anxious and less safe. And this is coming from a person with no criminal record and no intention to commit crimes. However, I think it's probably a bad idea at a large outdoor event such as this to have no kind of trained security. The local state-funded police is usually the most economical choice. I think this particular demand attacks the problem from the wrong angle. The police definitely need to be reformed, but they don't need to be removed. And until they are reformed, I think you still have to prioritize safety and security. This is, of course, unless you believe that the presence of the police actually poses more danger to people than they potentially prevent. But I think that's kind of an unreasonable position to take, even for black people. But like I said, the rest of the demands are really quite reasonable. They basically just call for the event to have more inclusion of minority groups. I don't really follow Pride Toronto that closely, so I don't know how inclusive they are in reality, but if they could benefit from being a little more inclusive and this causes them to do that, then net positive in my opinion. You see, non-white people are often left out of the conversation among marginalized groups. This is basically the concept of intersectionality. The idea that, for example, the experience of a gay black person is different from that of a gay white person, even though they're both gay. In most cases, non-white members of a disadvantaged group experience a higher degree of marginalization than their white counterparts. A lot of people criticize the disruptive and aggressive tactics that Black Lives Matter groups often use, but activism isn't supposed to be polite. You don't knock on the door and wait for someone to answer. If it's something you believe in, you just kick the shit down. I think it's fair to be skeptical of whether or not a strategy like that is actually effective, but I also think that sometimes being disruptive is the only way that people will hear you. Now, I've personally criticized groups and people who are being combative seemingly just for the sake of being combative, and I've criticized people who I think are making accusations of bigotry outside of the proper context, and I'd still argue that these things are counterproductive and harmful to the cause. However, if you have a legitimate gripe with society and you are making an honest, researched, intelligent plea for change, or even just a conversation, I'm probably not going to be that mad at you for being as loud as you need to be until someone listens to you. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Black Lives Matter is perfect, but what we can't deny is that Black Lives Matter is having and starting important conversations. And maybe that's the whole point. That's just me though. I want to know what you think though. Drop a comment. I also want to announce that I'm going to try to finally stick to some sort of a schedule on my channel. So as of right now, my schedule is going to be at least a video every Friday. And this is going to be Friday afternoon around 2 or 3 p.m. Central Time. And then also probably more videos in between that. I don't have a set schedule for the in-between videos, but definitely a video every Friday. Hopefully I can stick with that. I want to give a shout out to all of the new subscribers. How you doing? Consider hitting the thumbs up button and subscribe if you like my hair. Thank you once again for watching my video. For those that don't know, I'm a full-time YouTube creator, and the only way that I'm able to do that is through your support, and a large portion of that support comes through Patreon. Now, Patreon is a crowdfunding site for people like me with ongoing creative projects. It's kind of like an online tip jar where you can set it up to donate just a couple bucks every time I make a new video. So if you find any value in my channel or my videos, or if you just want to support me, please consider signing up for Patreon. That would be super amazing and totally appreciated. But even if you don't feel like it, or if you can't, that's fine too. I just thank you for watching.